whatever you do, don't fall asleep.
Welcome to Talking Horror with Jamie and Nikisha.
Hi, I'm Jamie.
And I'm Nikisha, and this is Talking Horror with Jamie,
And Nikisha.
where we share our love for spooky things and talk horror through the lens of human behavior. Welcome, everyone.
Welcome.
Pew, 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 pew. And extra sirens, extra blasts, because this is the start of season 5.
Season 5. We did it. That's
A
it.
whole
This is
hand.
the final season. No, I'm kidding.
So much to discuss in this, but wow, it has been a beautiful 4 seasons, and now we're starting it off right by getting into that Flaniverse, is what I'm going to call it, because that's what it's
I love it.
That is what it is becoming. So submitted for the approval of the Midnight Society. Today we are talking about the 2022 horror mystery thriller Netflix original series, The Midnight Club.
Woo.
Yay! So much to discuss. So obviously this is a Mike Flanagan stand account, okay? And he is he is the director of this, and I want to say it was first a story. He took this from another story, correct?
Right. It's
Did
a
I make
book.
that up?
So
Okay.
this is a book. The Midnight Club is like a 1994 book by Christopher Pike. And this is adapted. He created it with Leah Fong, and he directed a couple of them. He wrote a couple of them. So his hands are he directed the first 2 episodes, and he helped to write some of the episodes. So he's obviously very involved in it, but not as involved probably as he was in Hill House, Bly Manor, and Midnight Mass.
Midnight
of course.
Mass.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, at this point, he needs to just make a whole midnight universe. So just
I'm into it.
midnight all
Mass
around for
Club.
everyone.
Totally. Yeah, I agree.
So the Midnight Club, which is what we're talking about, it stars a few people. Some we've seen before, some we have not. It stars Amon Benson, Igby Rigney, which I just love that name, saying that
Oh
name.
man, it
Igby
sounds so
Rigney.
good when you say it too. Like it sounds pleasing. It's fun to say.
It's
Absolutely.
satisfying.
Yeah.
Ruth Codd, Anara Simone, which we saw her in Midnight Mass, William Chris Sumter, Aya Furukawa, Sorian Sepkoda, and Adaya. So that is the 8 members of the Midnight Club. I was going to say Midnight Mass. The Midnight.
It's their
Of the
version of
Midnight
church.
Universe.
It's their version of church in some ways.
Very
Yeah.
fair. I mean, we'll get into kind of some of the similarities, but it was nice to see Anara kind of still in that religious state from Midnight Mass and coming in Midnight Club. So obviously heavy spoilers for Midnight Club, all things. So if you have not watched it, please press pause. We'll watch all of it and then come back to us. And Jamie, what are the trigger warnings for this?
I mean, this series centers on folks who are on young people specifically who are terminally ill. So there, is a lot of focus on cancer and AIDS and all kinds of illnesses that lead to very limited lives. So I would say that's like primarily the trigger, but I mean, there's other references to substance use, to murder, to witchcraft. I don't think there's really any insides on the outside.
No, there's not. Just a little blood, but not
Yeah.
complete.
Head trauma, hammerhead trauma.
Yeah.
Suicide.
Mm.
So I think that's man. There's so many stories, so I'm like trying to go through the Rolodex of stories in my brain.
Apocalypse.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
many
Nuclear
things.
apocalypse.
Nuclear
video
apocalypse.
games.
It's, pick your poison. It's a lot.
Oh, and there's ghosts.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's
right.
ghosts also, by the way.
Duh.
Duh. There will always be ghosts in the Flaniverse. So Before we get heavy into things, producer Brian, do you have some words for us?
I always have words for you, Nikisha and Jamie. Yeah. Welcome to season 5. If you want to catch up with all of the other seasons of Talking Horror, we're wherever you find podcasts. We are also on YouTube. Hi, everyone.
What's
Check out
Hello.
our YouTube channel, where we do YouTube things. It's just these episodes, but you can see us. And of course, you can follow us on all the social medias at Talk Horror Pod. We are on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. Find us there. We're doing some fun things on all of those. And thanks for tuning in. We really appreciate your listen.
Yeah.
Whoop, whoop, whoop.
Well, I do want to ask the question about what you've watched because, guys, I watched a couple of movies.
Wait, really?
I did.
Go for it.
You know, because I was having an existential crisis. So obviously, I had to just sit and watch horror movies to process all that out. So I ended
Yes.
up completing my VHS journey.
Oh, damn.
I watched VHS 2, which might as well just be called Zombies because every story was about a freaking zombie.
Right? Yeah, totally.
Crazy. And then I watched Viral, which I thought was good. There's still not a lot of things that I heavily remember about it, but you know, I watched it. It happened. And then I watched Don't Worry, Darling.
Oh, we almost watched that last night.
Yes. Okay. And not to get into it because it's already been a whole thing, but I will just say that Florence Pugh can do no wrong in my eyes, so I will love everything that she does. There were, in my opinion, and I won't say anything because I want you guys to watch it too. I felt like there were some plot holes, but overall, I dug the concept. You get the reveal of what's actually happening, and I think that the performances were pretty great. So
Okay.
I enjoyed my watch of it. I think that people should watch it and form their own opinion. Again, my only gripe would just be that there was a couple of plot holes. I wish they would have dug into some things, answered a couple more questions. But the overall thing is revealed, and it's cute to watch. So
Wait,
if you want to
Nikisha,
watch, Don't Worry, Darling. Yes.
rank your VHS movies. Like, rank all the movies for us.
Okay, so uh, I'll start from the bottom. So because I don't remember it that much, I'm gonna put Viral at the bottom. And for 3, I'm gonna put the one that we just covered, 99?
99.
99.
Well, that's
Yes.
4.
Yeah, number yeah.
Yeah, okay.
In my rank. So because there's
Yeah.
4 of them, right? So the bottom one is Viral. My
There's
my
5.
third pick in the there's 5.
It's
Oh, then what did I
VHS,
miss?
VHS 2, VHS Viral, VHS
Viral.
94, and VHS 99.
Oh, well then I haven't watched 94.
Okay, we'll hold
Dang.
off then.
I'll
We'll
come back
hold
to
off
you.
then. Yeah, let's put a pin in it. And
Put a pin in
your
it.
homework is to watch Hail Ratma, watch VHS 94, and
Oh,
then
yeah.
come with us, and then we'll rank them. This is okay. Good
Got
to
it.
know. Yeah.
This is good. This is good. I don't know why I thought 94 was the one that was coming out, but there's an 80 something that's
85 is
coming out.
coming out next year.
That's it.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I got my thing. So I'll come back. We'll hit it.
Is your mic swinging with you?
It is because yeah.
Oh, it's on your swivel
sitting-
chair. Oh my
it's on-
gosh, that's amazing. I want one.
This is the things that you get to see when you watch us on the YouTubes,
Yeah.
guys. Just my mic swiveling with me. Brian is like, what magic witchcraft is happening?
I know, right?
Yeah, it's just floating, like no one can see anything.
Yeah, I'm just like, what is happening?
Beautiful. Okay, so let's get into the plot summary for Midnight Club because we have a lot to discuss.
What's the plot?
But instead of our 2-minute plot summary format that we normally would do on the podcast for movies, because this is a series, Brian is going to just give us a 1-minute general summary of what happens in this series. So
Yes.
is Jamie are you gonna time?
Yes.
Beauty.
So it's 1 minute. So
1
now my
minute.
clock is always set to 2.
No,
It's always
1
I'm
minute.
always ready.
Okay, I'm
All
ready.
right. 1 minute starts now.
So the Midnight Club is about these terminally ill children, teenagers who choose to go to basically like a hospice for teenagers with terminal illnesses. And there's a tradition there where all of the kids meet in the library or meet somewhere secretly at midnight in the house and tell stories to each other. Now, these stories reflect kind of how they're internally feeling about their given circumstances, and then there's a whole nother kind of plot where there's something a little bit more nefarious and mischievous going on when it comes to like the house and the backstory of the house and the woman who owns it and runs everything. And all of these teens also have these interpersonal communication conversations and emotions and feelings within each other, a lot of camaraderie. And then it ends and we're left on a cliffhanger for season 2, Midnight Mass. I mean, no, Midnight Club.
And that's the plot.
It's easy to get it
man.
I
confused.
know.
Okay,
That's pretty
so
good.
yeah, no, that's great.
Thank
It's
you.
the general gist of it. We'll get into some
General
details.
gist.
That's it.
God.
General gist. Beautiful. So let's start off with our first segment, likes and gripes.
And now our likes and gripes.
So Jamie, would you like to go first on your likes and gripes of this TV show?
Sure. Overall, I thought it was okay. While we were watching it is when I learned that it's actually like a season 1, which helped me reset expectations for like what I thought I was going to get from this first season, because they leave you on a cliffhanger. There's a lot of things that we like don't totally know what's going on. Um, but that's okay, because like in theory, there's, future seasons to explain all of these things. Um, but that being said, I feel like, I mean, I don't know if just having gotten used to like other Mike Flanagan shows where things are resolved, whether for good or bad, but like loose ends are tied. It's kind of it kind of felt like weird, unfinished to like leave all of these things hanging. So not that I'm going to knock a show for like having a season and then like wanting to have more seasons, but I
For sure.
I feel like it was harder. I need to know. I need to know now. Tell me.
Please.
But I do need to know. So I think that like, we're following Alanka and all of these young people on these different like, journeys that they're going through, and they're trying to make sense of their situation, which is like an impossible situation to make sense of. They themselves also, again, are young people, so like they're not like fully formed. Like you're not even like who you are. You don't even, your frontal cortex isn't even done, growing, and you
Mm.
have to deal with things that like nobody should have to deal with. So like there's so much of that, which obviously is on the forefront. So I feel like you have to have a certain expectation of what you're getting into watching a show about like young people dealing with terminal illnesses. And I think that that was a big barrier for a lot of people, because it's like, I don't know if I want to like take on this show that's going to be really sad.
Absolutely.
And you're kind of anticipating that like we're going to lose some folks.
Yep.
And I think that's a totally valid. I mean, we didn't spoiler warn for grief, but like I think you can assume, given
What it's
the
about.
topics, yeah, the themes, that that's going to be a core part of this. So like I understand um the hesitation. For me personally, I liked Alanka up to a point. And then I kind of found her kind of annoying and grating. And I think it's really
Mm.
hard because like in the first half with Anya, I think that's where Anya was an excellent character. She's high on my list of likes.
Yeah.
She like, even though there's like some of the tropes of like, oh, this person who's like, like doesn't want to let people in, but then actually is like a big softie on the inside kind of thing. Like we've seen it
Mm-hmm.
before, but I think that it actually, because it's about all of these people, not like there isn't only this focus on Anya. It really helped. I think Brian was saying this when we were finishing it up, but like it helped us empathize more with Alanka. And then without Anya, after she passes away, Alanka is like I mean, I think that she's spiraling because she's dealing with this grief and like her own grief about like not wanting to die herself. But
Mm,
she makes all of these decisions that like are a lot harder to swallow as an audience member. And then I found myself kind of getting bored with it, which was really disappointing because like I liked I liked the short stories, like the in-between stories, but I feel like the overarching story kind of was like losing steam as a result because it was harder to watch these characters like do some of these things, make some of these choices. And
mm,
again, that's me saying that as someone who has no experience with terminal illness. I cannot speak to like I don't know how I would act if I was going through this situation, and I think
yeah.
that's, a huge challenge, but I yeah, I loved Anya. I kind of liked Alanka.
Mm,
I really liked the adult characters, like Shasta, which like spoilers isn't really Shasta.
right.
Um, I thought she was excellent again from Midnight Mass, like the big bad. She's just excellent. So like
Incredible.
her manipulating Alanka, like I knew something fishy was going on, but I did really like the way that she played it and like playing into this young person that might not know any better, but also
Mm.
her like interest and I didn't like the way she was calling her bright girl. It like made me super uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And then like in the flashback you realize that's what she was called. I have mixed feelings about Heather Langenkamp. She's obviously a scream queen from one of my favorite slashers of all time.
Mm,
But I feel like she could have been used more. Like she was in some of the other short stories. I actually really liked how all of the characters played each other in these different stories. And then
yeah.
like the adults are also in some of the stories. Then we get some other adults who aren't in the rest of the show who are in some of the
Mhm.
stories that I got super excited about. Um, so I actually really liked those things. But again, that's more about like the side stories than the main overarching story.
Mm,
So I don't know. I feel like I've lost the thread. I'm not being specific enough because I feel like it's hard to like nail down exactly. There's so much going on. And again, I feel like it's harder to kind of nail it down because it's inconclusive because we don't know what's
right.
gonna happen next. So I'm kind of feeling like all over the place. But overall, I kind of just thought it was okay.
Yeah. That's fair. Brian, do you want to go?
Oh, sure. I'll also say to add on to what Jamie was mentioning about the relationship of Alanka and Anya and how that kind of, affected us as an audience member. The second that Anya left the show, I felt that Alanka, not only everything that Jamie said, plus the fact that Alanka all of a sudden was looking down on everybody. And I think it started that way, and Anya brought her back down to earth. And when Anya was there, Anya played this role of kind of
Mm,
like this, like the outsider, the looking down, even though it was based in the fact that, like, her own internal goings on. And then when she left, Alanka just felt like this, like, I'm better than all of you. I'm making the right decisions. Like, what bothered me the most is this show presented Ilanka as very smart. This show presents Ilanka as like deeply empathetic, wildly, wise beyond her years. And I don't think the show did a good enough job. I'm starting with my gripes, and also
mm,
end with my likes. I don't think the show did a good enough job of conveying what she's going through mentally to make those poor decisions. For instance, she is clearly being manipulated by this woman, and I think that Alanka is smarter than she was presented as smarter than to fall for like these weird things like, oh, why don't you bring me the book and sneak me in? Like, I
right.
just I don't believe that Alanka is a character up until that point that would actually make that decision. And I don't think they do a good enough job of showing how broken she is and how desperate she is. They say how desperate she is, but I don't think they show how desperate she is until she has to make these decisions that I kind of don't believe that she would make. It felt very much like for plot purposes. Um,
Mm,
I also don't think that I also don't think that they showed enough of her breakdown and her like emotionally distressed to justify the fact that she would go off on what's his name's girlfriend. And quite
Yeah.
frankly, I would have never forgiven her. Um, I know she's a teenager, but I have a hard time forgiving her for sharing that information that somebody's going home and then being selfish about it and
Yeah.
saying that I think it's me. Like, she's this that was a dirt move, a very selfish character move when she's been selfless the whole time. There was just from the moment that Anya left, like Jamie said, something about her character just like didn't click for me without that other force there. So I'll
Mm.
say that. And I think that directly relates to the fact that what Jamie said is that like the overall arcing story, that like that constant that kept us through there, um, didn't really work for me in the end. Like all the ritual stuff, the like history of the house, it wasn't engaging enough at the end. However, I thought the first half of this season was excellent. It was a little slow, don't get me wrong, and maybe that's why I didn't like
Mhm.
the end because it was slow and built to something that I didn't care about. Um,
Yes.
but the first couple episodes, her getting showing who she is, and then getting the cancer, and showing her given circumstances with her foster dad and having lost a foster mother or whatever that situation was, and then choosing to go because she's like this something is all drawing me here, and like I think all of that is fascinating, and then just the 90s boy inside of me just like loved
Mhm.
the Are You Afraid of the Dark goosebumps feel, the expectation set for this like teen mystery, like Hardy Boys or Nancy Drew, something like I was like very into that. Like Jamie figured out immediately that it was the Dewey Decimal System that was the number. Like
Mm.
we were like going along with it,
Smart.
and then halfway through it lost that thread. But the like I have is I still cried in the last couple episodes because I was invested in these characters. When he's having
Mhm.
trouble, when he and uh what's it when Spencer and his family. Like, how could you
Yeah.
not be overwhelmed by that? The kindness of Zach Gilford, shout out Friday Night Lights,
Yeah.
like as Mark the nurse practitioner, Amesh and Nasuki, like when he can't grab it anymore, and like he says he's losing
Yeah.
in his eye, and then he makes that comment in the end, like "Let me look at you." Like I just like how could you not well up? Like the what they did with these people and these characters is spectacular. I don't think the show was strong enough to like support all of that. So those are my likes and my gripes.
Yeah. Yeah, I will say I felt exactly the same way as you guys did, so I'll try not to repeat what you have said, but I will just run through some of my notes that I had, and this is under the assumption that I thought that this was only one season, and I did
Yeah.
not know until I finished it and looked it up that it was
Oh.
gonna be. So nowhere in the 10 episodes
Mm.
did I realize that there was gonna be another season. So
Well, Nikisha,
here
before you start, I just have a question
yeah.
for you. How
Mhm.
fast did you watch these 10 episodes?
I watched these 10 episodes in the span of what? Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. 4 days.
Okay. I
Mhm.
only ask because Jamie and I have been watching this for a month. Like we would watch like two episodes, get
Wow.
really into it, and then like we'd get busy and like that's not the first show we want to go back to. But we
Mhm.
prioritized it over all the other October stuff because it's Flanagan. So like it just took us a while to get through it. And I think if this had been
Yeah.
strong like a Midnight Mass or a Hill House, like we would have like we were fine with stopping after 3 episodes, you know, and then like
Yeah.
and then
Mhm.
starting again next week or whatever it is. So I was just curious,
Wow.
like how you like took in this content.
Yeah, well, it was definitely a I need to get through this, but I also thought that because of who was directing this, that it would be one of those moments where I would just want to sit and keep starting the next episode and keep starting it and keep starting it. But I ended up watching maybe 2 or 3 episodes, each day and then finished it in the
Mhm.
span of 4 days. And I will say that I loved the scary stories more than the through line of the narrative plot, I guess, that we talk about. And it's the only I went through all the episodes and I didn't start really writing notes until the Anya episode. And that's what
Mm,
episode 5,
sure.
because I agree it is a very slow start, but I also felt that way in Bly Manor, but you get such a great payoff because of how slow it can start. And so by the time we are reaching and reaching and reaching from episode 1 to episode 5, I feel like it reached this peak of, oh my gosh, this is beautiful. This is gorgeous. I love the representation here. And I just can't wait to see what is going to happen and how, again, how is this series going to end? Because I thought it was going to end. So
Yeah.
I got up to 5, and then just it went very much downhill. Like if you are watching on YouTube, you can see my me trying to write a little diagram of like episode 1, and it's all the way up to the peak of episode 5, and then it immediately just dropped
Mm,
for me for the rest of the
yeah.
episodes. Um, but I love, and I even wrote in my notes, like, the Anya episode is killing me. The therapy rant about her dead friends, I was weeping through that entire episode because it was gut wrenching, the blood sacrifice, everything. It was wonderfully written, wonderfully acted. And I also wrote, I love how Flanagan has such a slow burn and then changes kind of the story's main character without warning, because I was under the assumption that what was happening with Anya would be true. And I'd be like, oh my God, this is amazing if we're just going to continue on with this. And that is where we're going, because it was something that is so unexpected. And I was curious to see what was going to happen next. And I even put, I wasn't
Hmm.
feeling this show at first, but then that episode happened and it was like, great. And then you're thinking, okay, well, she's in a coma and she's stuck in her mind. And wow, what a beautiful depiction, though, of being in a coma and wrestling with your own thoughts and your mind. I
Hmm.
thought that was beautifully filmed. And I love how Flanagan put so much genuine love and heartfelt tenderness into what is supposed to be a horror movie show. I kind of want a hourglass tattoo, even though it has a bad meaning, but I thought it looked really cool. So I put that in my notes. I also,
Is that going to be our talking horror matching tattoo?
oh my gosh, if we could just get like a Mike Flanagan matching tattoo moment, just like a tiny one, I would be down. I'm
I'm
just
in.
saying, I'm absolutely in. But and I also loved the Green Day song, but I honestly thought that that was from the American Idiot album. So I was thinking, I need to look up when this came out, because I felt like it was an aughts song, but it came out in 97. So
This
of
soundtrack
course they
was
did their
killer.
research.
This
It
was,
was
yeah.
great. It was a really good time. And I, like Jamie said, I love all of the other characters that are from the Flaniverse that are in these scary stories, these Midnight Club stories. But then, and I loved, oh my gosh, I loved the representation of depression with Nazuki and her character with the driving and the two
Hmm.
people with her. And shout out to those actors too, because I love them and all of the other Mike Flanagan stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, at the end, I was just thinking, I want to know what's up with Julia Jane. What is up with the headmaster? Why is this ending how it is ending? And then I saw that there was going to be more seasons. So I thought, okay, because for Mike Flanagan to put something out like this and then not have it be tied up and wrapped in a bow, however messy the bow is, like Jamie said, is doesn't seem characteristic of his writing style. So yeah, it was okay for me overall. There was definitely peak episode moments, but other than that, it wasn't really my favorite, and it felt like the slow burn was kind of for nothing.
Sure.
But we'll see.
Well, then, if I can ask you all, it seems like we all really enjoyed the storytelling, like within the episodes. Um, let's go around. What was your favorite story that somebody told in any episode? Like your favorite?
I absolutely, and I wrote it down. The two Dana story, Anya story, was my favorite,
Mm,
hands down. Jamie?
Yeah, I think I was gonna say the same thing. I think that one is my favorite. I'm like trying to.
I
I did also like the time travel nuclear apocalypse one.
The
mm,
mesh story.
Mm-hmm.
yes, my favorite was my favorite by far was Natsuki's story, with Henry
Mm,
Thomas and
Mm.
Alex Esso. I think they
yeah.
added gravitas to that. Jamie and I were wildly engaged to the screen. We were trying to guess what was happening, and then
Mm-hmm.
something else I liked about that is that the story had a happy ending. Like she was able to get out, and
Yeah.
and then when she tells what actually happened, where this actually happened to her. She couldn't get there. She was just very lucky that somebody came and found her. And then when she went to the hospital, that's when they found the cancer. So this thing that
Yeah.
she was trying to kill herself with ended up finding a thing that was actually going to kill her. Finally, when she like found the will to live, and that is just so devastating and sad, and a good example of how the show would take how these characters are feeling or what happened to them and kind of
Mm-hmm.
create a new narrative around that. I really appreciated that. Plus, man, I love Henry Thomas and Alex Esso so much, and
Yeah.
that shot, him being the devil on the shoulder, being like, no, don't get out of the car, like, and her being the other side of it, but still nefarious, of like, you can get out, like, let's open the
Yeah.
door, why not open the door, like, I really like that push and pull. And then when she turns around to see them in the garage and they've got that ghoul makeup on, really effective for me.
Yeah. So good. So good. Okay, well, let's get into our next section because Brian's already bringing it up. Brains.
Brains.
Tasty. So, the first question, and Will, I know that Brian has some stuff to piggyback on this, but I do want to talk about how a person, or how do you prevent your circumstances from defining your life and who you are? And I'm specifically talking about Anya in her coma dream state episode when she is talking to the group therapy and saying that her disease has defined the majority of her life. So Jamie, can you just talk about how can someone try and prevent their circumstances from defining their life and who they are?
Oh man, what a loaded question.
Yeah.
Because I think it's real. I think it's. I talk context is key. You could probably that could be our merch at this point.
Yes.
Um, but I do like. I feel like that's a really important piece because again, as someone who has not had this experience, I feel like it's such a like life changing event that I think it is going to like play a really big role in how you see yourself, especially at a really pivotal time in your life where like you are still figuring out who you are or at least who you want to be.
Mm,
And so like this is so intertwined like with your life force that it's it is like very life defining, I imagine. And
yeah.
so it's like how yeah, like instead of focusing on that as like part of what you're experiencing, are there other things that you can fill your time with and like do that bring you joy
Mm,
or because I think like thinking about what the core of like where they are and like what's the point of this place for them, what are they trying to do in like being here, it's end of life care. It's like the idea that like they're here because they know that they are dying. And so
mm,
like what is it that they can get, what's offered to them by being at Bright Cliff in order to like die on their own terms, I think is something that the doctor, that Heather Langenkamp's character like says.
yeah.
Like she talks a lot about autonomy, which is also ironic given what we were talking about with Alanka earlier of like she takes that autonomy away by like sharing this information which isn't hers to share, and that's
Right.
fucked up. But like that, the point of this place is like you get to live out the rest of your life in a way that like aligns with who you are. But also like if you don't fully know who you are, then like what does that then look like?
Mm,
So I think that's like really a non-answer I gave. But again, like I think that them spending time with each other and telling stories and like spending time with their family in the ways that like work for them,
right.
all of that. It's like they get to decide kind of like how they want this experience to be. So, I think focusing on things like that also makes it less like character life defining
Yeah,
in a way.
absolutely.
But I think it also depends on like again, like how ill are you and are, like they're all still able to walk around, or like, Anya's in a wheelchair, but like they have mobility still.
Mm,
They still have like some autonomy. I remember the one character early on who was like in isolation who passed away.
yeah.
Like
Tristan.
if the I
Yeah,
think
Tristan.
so.
Hmm.
um that like we don't really get to meet, so it's like, what happens when like then you're really really sick, and at that point. But I think like while they still are able to have like more autonomy,
Hmm.
how do they get to lean into the things that like bring them joy, make them happy, and even like might help them figure out more of who they are, who they want to be during that time.
Yeah, absolutely. Brian, were you gonna say something?
Oh yeah, and then just to piggyback off of both of that and something you said before, Jamie, in terms of like your frontal cortex is still like developing, and they're getting this
Hmm.
news about like how they're not going to be able to grow into the person they want to be, and does that not physically like stunt growth, but like emotionally, does that stunt growth? Because
Mm,
like why what just write out your years or months, you know what I mean? Or I guess, and how do you even how can you even combat that, or at least not combat that, but like how can you at the very least make sense of that while you're
mm,
still figuring yourself out?
Yeah. I mean, an area that I don't specialize in, but like very much exists is like there's therapy for health, there's therapy for like chronic illness, there's therapy for like folks who are dealing with cancer. Like there are therapists who do specialize in being able to like provide support around these very questions, because I think that like it is a very unique experience, and like having somebody to, again, everyone go to therapy, but like
mhm,
having somebody who can like help you process some of these questions that like there isn't necessarily a neat easy answer to. And
yeah.
yeah, like I think that's part of it, is like getting support so that you're able to kind of like talk through this. But like it is like, and then all the emotions that come with that, the anger, the frustration, the pain, the distress, like, and we see a lot of that play out as well, just like how people are processing their own emotions, like
Mm,
their own lives and deaths, and like seeing others around them dying, and like how are they processing all of that. um yeah, like I think it's so important to have a space to be able to like talk about that, because like
yeah.
you're already like you're already like experiencing something. It's going to have an impact on your mental health, so like
Yeah.
how are you dealing with that while also dealing with everything else?
Yeah, I also think this show, and correct me if I'm wrong, both of you, I think this show does a very good job because of the group therapy sequences, and therapy is highlighted in this. I know, I think Nikisha, you have questions about therapy, um,
Yeah.
for Jamie, but I just want to say that I think this show does a really good job of showing that the storytelling is therapeutic. The therapy is
Mm,
therapy. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
yeah. That's a great way to put that. Yeah, because it is. And I think that is also piggybacking on what Jamie said about autonomy and saying this, we're going to meet, we're going to do these things, we're going to do what we want to do on our own terms because of, or in spite of everything else that's happening with us that we know is going to be the end for us. Like what else are we trying to do that's ours, that we can have kind of control over. So that is a great point of the stories being therapy as well, because I never thought about that in that sense. But
Mm.
Jamie did already answer in that discussion some of the other stuff that I that I was going to ask, especially with like you said, of course, if you are going or if you are diagnosed with a life-threatening disease, there is going to be some type of mental health crisis, for lack of a better word, that comes with that, even if you didn't have it before.
Yeah, I mean, because I think also like a really easy way to look at it is like the experience of grief. Like you're grieving the life that you are no longer necessarily going to lead in some circumstances, or
Hmm.
grieving what you thought your life was going to be. Cause I think we get that with like Alanka, and like she's going to go to college and like, pursue, what was it, romantic literature. I
Yeah.
was like, did you just like reference like Bly Manor? Like, was this like an Easter egg? Um, but yeah, like then having to mourn no longer getting to do that. Like now her
Right.
life has fundamentally changed course, and like that's part of grief too. So
Mm.
I think that there's like just a lot of in grappling what you're dealt with, like it's a lot of processing that, like how is this happening, why is this happening,
Mm-hmm.
we didn't even talk about like the faith of it all, but like faith coming
Mm.
up a lot,
Hmm.
which again we know Mike Flanagan loves talking about religion,
Yes.
um but just yeah, like how some characters use their faith as like support, and like that's
Mm-hmm.
something that's helping them get through this. For others, like their relationship with their faith has shifted as a result of like what they're dealing with, but also like other circumstances. So I think that's like another important piece to think about too, is like how does faith play a role in when your life is fundamentally changed, or like when you're dealing with some kind of terminal illness, like how are you thinking about dying, the afterlife, all
Mm-hmm.
of those things I think come up for folks. But like no, like believing in a higher power, I think also provides people with comfort, especially as they're like close to death. So I thought that I actually really enjoyed like the way that was integrated into the story, because I feel like that's important, and it's not like nobody is going to be in that space not having some kind of like higher power that they're referencing. So I appreciate that was a part
Yeah.
of it too.
I also, and it's so interesting too, because I also enjoyed the fact that when Sandra was the one who was
Hmm.
misdiagnosed, she was never like, it's because of my faith that
Yeah.
now I am like, and she was very practical and scientific about, and it was a nice juxtaposition, because Elanka was thinking that the magic was the thing that healed whoever it was, even if it wasn't
Mhm.
her, and
Mm.
Sandra's, who some would think is believing in magic, quote
Sure.
unquote, with her faith. And she's the one who's saying, it was a misdiagnosis. It all makes sense. This is very practical. This is very scientific. Like, and these are the facts. And
Sure.
this is what is laid
Mhm.
out. And it has nothing to do. And I love that it wasn't kind of like a, yay, my faith got me out of
Hmm.
this. As someone who has
Yeah.
faith, it was just nice that that wasn't her journey
Mhm.
after the fact. But
Sure.
great.
But I think it
Uh
speaks to like growth. Like
Yeah,
her,
absolutely.
like again, they're all young people whose brains aren't fully formed. So like I think being able to see the trajectory over time of like she still was like pretty headfast in her belief system,
Mhm.
but that I think like especially for something like this where it's like, okay, now my life has fundamentally changed again, and
Yeah.
like now grappling with like, oh, I'm not dying, like what does this mean now,
Mhm.
and that information is like probably just as shocking, as I assume, as finding out that you are dying. So like
Yeah.
now all of the processing that she has to do there, um
It's a
I can't
lot.
Is
imagine.
that like
Yeah.
that could be considered a form of like survivor's guilt too? Yes.
Yeah, I think
Mm.
that's part of how she was like presenting of like I think she was feeling really guilty, and um like bad, and was saying how she didn't want to leave, um
Mhm.
because I think I can only imagine again that like she feels badly that like she gets to leave, and what does that mean for the rest of them, what does that mean for these relationships that she's had, um
And
now that she's not terminally ill.
yeah, and like
Right.
if I was in that, it's a situation I cannot imagine. But if I was in that
Mm-mm.
situation, I could potentially understand how a person like that would feel, like because they were given a second chance at life and they were spent so much time in hospice, like I need to live the life of for these nine other people, for these eight other people, like to take
Yeah.
on that pressure of like my life has to be worth something because my closest friends are not going to make it past 18, 19. Like I
Mhm.
can
Yeah.
only imagine the weight of that when living your entire life.
Or like in my brain would think, I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop, and
Mm,
will this
Mm.
come back?
sure.
So kind of trying to navigate through the world, but also in the back of your mind thinking, what if this just comes back? Like, how do I,
Yeah, that shadow that
it's,
was
yeah,
in the first half of the season but disappeared in the
yeah.
second half.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Well, should we move on to Rotten Tomatoes?
It's the Rotten Tomatoes game.
Yes. Let's do a Rotten Tomatoes. All right. What do you think Rotten Tomatoes gave this? Well, what Rotten Tomatoes aggregated this on Rotten Tomatoes?
I'm gonna say 65.
All right. Jamie.
I'm gonna say 68.
All right. Well, it's an 87%.
Ooh, wow.
Okay.
But the audience score is 55%.
Mm.
Mm.
And this says for season 1 at least, Mike Flanagan's hot streak of heartfelt horror stories continues strong in the Midnight Club, a tale of terminal teenagers told with jolts and joie de vivre.
Joie de vivre.
I think that's
All
being too
right.
kind to this.
Yes.
But well, here's a
But
question. If this is the Mike Flanagan hot streak of TV shows, how would you rank your Flanagan shows? So it's Hill House, it's Bly Manor, it's Midnight Mass, and it's Midnight Club. Don't get too
Mm.
confused.
Jamie, do you want to go first?
Sure. I think. Do you want fourth to first or first to fourth?
First to
Fourth
fourth.
to first. It's
Fourth
more
to first,
exciting.
yeah.
Fourth to
Yeah.
first.
So I think I would have to put Midnight Club in my fourth place slot.
Mhm.
And again, saying that, knowing that it is unfinished, so there's still a lot of things we don't know. But I think just generally in terms of the storytelling, and like overall execution, it goes in my fourth place slot.
Mhm.
For third place, I will give it to Bly Manor, which I loved Bly Manor. I thought it was excellent. I loved like the romantic story in there. For second, I'm gonna throw it to Hill House. Excellent horror TV show, very spooky. Never forget the car scene. And my number one is Midnight Mass, without a doubt. It was
Yeah.
just so truly remarkable. Like one of the best TV shows I think I've ever seen.
Your list is a midnight sandwich.
I would order that. I'd
Oh
order
my
a midnight sandwich.
gosh.
Kind of sounds spooky.
Yeah. Yeah, that's my exact same list. And it just is so crazy to me that Midnight Mass was nowhere near any of the Emmy awards or anything, because
Sure.
that was just a true masterpiece. I just don't think enough people watched it. It's so good. So yeah, same as
Mhm.
Jamie.
I'm
What
the,
about you, Brian?
I'm the same too. The only like asterisk I will put is that Hill House is more rewatchable than Midnight Mass. But I don't.
Fair.
That still wouldn't put it above there. But like, if I was gonna go back and rewatch something, I would pick Hill House before I picked any
Yes.
of the other ones because, because Midnight Mass is just like you have to be in the headspace and like really be there, and it's not like you're not watching it for your favorite jump scares or favorite this. Like it's very much about the entire narrative and how it comes together. Whereas Hill House is like that, but you can look for ghosts. You can like be more invested in one
Yes.
character's storyline. You can, there's a little bit more of a rewatch quality to it because it's less. I wouldn't even say intense or whatever the case may be. But yeah, same list.
No, I agree. I actually was telling one of my friends about all of his things, and she's never watched any of it. And Hill House was the first one that I said, "Well, we need to watch this one." Of all the ones to rewatch, and I will sit with you and rewatch, it's that one.
Mhm.
Fantabulous. So now, should we do the 4 S's?
Let's do the 4 S's.
Skull, scare, shakes, and suggestions. The Talking Horrors 4 S's.
Okay, the 4 S's are skulls, scares, shakes, and suggestions. Skulls, scares, and shakes, we're going to rank 1 through 10. Skulls is how well this handles mental health and human behavior. Scares is how scary was it. And shakes, how are you going to remember it? This is a one and done situation. I would also base that number on if how excited you are for season 2, since now we know that this is a seasonal
Fair.
engagement. And then we'll go into suggestions. But Jamie, why don't you start us off with your 4 S's or 3 of them?
Sure. That was a Z. That wasn't even an S. Um, so for skulls, this is hard. Um, because I have a lot of different numbers bouncing around in my head for different reasons. But I think
Mhm.
I'm actually gonna give it on the higher end. I'm gonna give it a 7.
Mm.
Because again, it's like, how can I, as someone who has not had this experience, truly try to put myself in this situation, and like, would I potentially act in some of the ways that like some of the characters are acting? And like,
Mhm.
I don't really know. I really cannot say. So I'm gonna have to assume that like this is probably, a more reasonable way to like, again, operate in the world given these circumstances, and like still being such a young person that like I'm probably, I mean, I made lots of bad decisions when I was a young person, so like I probably still would be. So
Yeah.
yeah, so 7 for skulls. For scares, I think I'm gonna give it a 3. I'm trying to remember, like, I think some of the jump scares got me,
Mm.
but overall, I feel like some of the stories weren't too scary. It was mostly the jump scares. So I'm gonna give that a 3. Uh, for shakes, I think I'm gonna give it a 4 because again, I feel like my brain's gonna lose the thread because I don't know how it
Mm.
ends, and it's just kind of gonna like fall off until I get more. So it doesn't hold that strong in my brain.
Sure.
Yeah.
Nikisha.
Yeah, Skulls, I'm going to give it an 8 because of how it was depicting a lot of the different mental illnesses. I thought it was beautiful. Scares, I give it a 1. It wasn't too scary, but there was a couple jump scares that did get me. And Shakes, I'll give it a 5 because I will only really remember Anya's episode.
Mm.
So, yeah.
Sure. I'm gonna give it an 8 for skulls as well. I think the stories, especially the way that they reflect what everyone is feeling and thinking, is nice. Scares, I gave it a 3 as well. That first episode holds the Guinness Book record for most jump scares in like an hour TV show or something like that.
Oh,
Was like,
yeah.
um, and some of them got me. There were some along the way, but not overly scary. And then Shakes, I put at a 6. Probably only because Flanagan's name is attached to this. This is and some of the moments are great, but I think overall this is forgettable. And like, I'm not too interested to hear what's going to happen in season 2, and maybe I'll watch it to see, depending on how much he's involved. But I'm more excited for the Fall of the House of Usher, his show next year, than I would be for anything
Mm.
that comes back from Midnight Club. Um, but yeah, let's go into suggestions. What would you suggest, Nikisha? We'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, we've already said it, and Are You Afraid of the Dark is just great. And as far as his TV show, I would suggest Bly Manor because it's a slow burn, but a slam dunk on the ending.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can deal with something that is a slow burn, but the payoff is excellent, then Bly Manor. So those are my
Cool.
2 suggestions.
Jamie.
Yeah, I mean, you have to recommend Are You Afraid of the Dark? Like, but I will also throw out Goosebumps for another series that had a bunch of different stories that also were scary. Shout out to
Mhm.
that mask that didn't come off.
The haunted
Right?
Oh
That's
my
a
mask. The
Goosebumps
god.
haunted
story.
mask. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
Goosebumps.
Ugh.
Yes.
Um, terrifying.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I feel like, I mean, if you want another Flanagan show to check out, I mean, truly watch all of them. Like, really, not enough people watch Midnight Mass, and it was excellent. So if you need another recommendation, do it. Do it now.
Do
Do
it,
it,
do it,
or
do
else.
it.
I'm gonna go with another teen like spooky thing is Erie, Indiana.
Mm.
Um, and then I guess I'll just suggest Hill House, the other one that we didn't say. um,
Yeah. Just all
but
of them.
yeah, but if you're going more teen, something like that, I'd go Erie, Indiana. Oh,
Beauty.
something I also wanted to say is I loved all the little Easter eggs in this, like the short story with when Spencer's telling the story of like Rel and like the videotape. There's all those time travel movies on his wall. And then like
Mm.
everybody's always
Mm,
reading a different Stephen King book throughout this whole thing. Like I loved all the like spooky
mhm.
stuff or like 90s pop culture references like sewn into everything.
Yeah,
But yeah, cool beans.
gotta love the
Cool
90s.
beans.
What a time to be alive. Beautiful. Well, I think that wraps up our episode of the Midnight Club. You can follow us on all of the social medias, especially the TikToks, where we're
Woo!
just blooming over there at Talk
Bloomin'.
Horror Pod, POD, blooming.
Like bloomin'
uh,
onion.
yes.
Yeah.
And Brian, where can they listen to us?
Yeah, you can listen
Bloomin'
to us
onion.
where Bloomin' Onion, any any place that sells a bloomin' onion. Um um uh uh why can't I think of the place that sells the bloomin' onion? The steakhouse.
Outback?
Outback Steakhouse.
Chili's.
Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Oh, Chili's may have
A lot
one
of people
too,
sell them.
but I'm thinking of the one
No.
from Outback. Anyway, where
Oh,
you
okay.
can also find us on things like Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Rate and review us there. 5 stars. Oh, 5 stars, please.
And
And
thank
thank
you.
you. Beautiful. Well, I guess the only way we can sign off is the Green Day song. So can you play what is it? Time of Your Life?
Yeah, I could put time in.
I've had the time of my life. But not that
Oh,
one.
Oh, I don't
that's
think
the
that's
Green
the
Day
Green
song?
Day
Oh, that's the
version.
Green Day version?
Yep.
That's it.
Mhm.
Thanks,
Alright.
guys. Bye.
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 So